possible, balancing all their nutrients to make sure that the plant has neither too many or too little, and they use photoperiodic lighting.
Cool.
Now, photoperiodic lighting, I'll just get this thing down here. That's all right. Okay. You've all seen the circular timers used for growing, right? It's a circle. It's like this. It's got a pin in the middle. It's got times. It's got quarter hour, and you usually have a couple of tabs on this timer. It's a 24-hour timer, and it'll have usually a couple of on and a couple of off tabs. Now, normally the 18.6s will run from here. Let's see, from here, from 6 o'clock in the morning until midnight. Okay, it's 18 hours all the way around. Okay. So the way the photoperiodic lighting works is instead of 18 hours, you only run 12 hours of light and 12 hours of dark, and in the middle you put a 1 hour flash of light. Sorry about my writing. Now, this 1 hour flash of light fools the plants, and as you can see, during the light period here, all the PFRs are being destroyed during the light period. Okay? Destroyed. Okay, now the lights go out and the PFR levels start to rise again. Okay, during this period. Light comes back on, and what happens is that this flash of light restores the PFR levels back down to this level, right? And that prevents the plant from going into flower. It's a gardening trick. No, I believe it was discovered in Europe. I think I've heard a story that someone was looking for bugs in the garden. Some growers were trying to eradicate some insects that they had, and so they put these lights out there to find them. And then they noticed this effect happening on their short day plants. So someone got the bug and said, "Hey, let's try this out. Let's try to make this work," and that's what happened. So after the initial, you can run this. You can run this as soon as your plants have gone out of seedling phase and they're into adolescent phase. You can begin 12-1 light. Sorry, am I missing the microphone again? Okay.
I just want to get closer.
So 12-1 lighting replaces 18.6. Okay. And the second lighting technique that's normal is 12 and 12. In this case, you run 12 hours of light. Okay. What this does is it keeps the plant in semi-veg. And when a plant is in semi-veg, it's growing flowers, but it's also growing a lot of leaf. It's wasting a lot of energy growing leaf, and it's also causing the stems to stretch, which is another source of energy loss. All those nutrients that are going into your plant, if they aren't making buds, then you're wasting your fertilizers, growing stems, roots, and leaves. I mean, we can all use all that stuff, but if you want to grow buds, why grow a leaf and stem, right? Okay, so the abbreviated diminished light schedule, instead of using 12 hours, it cuts it right down to 10. I did a bunch of experimenting on this, and I started out with 11, and I tried gradual diminishing light schedule of 15 minutes every week or so, and that worked fine. But I ran into problems because I had other plants coming in behind it, arriving at the wrong part at the wrong time of the light schedule. And so, if I was already down to 9 hours and I brought in new plants, then those plants should have been started at 11 hours, and I've got a couple of schedules crossed. So I settled on a sweet spot at 10 hours of light to flower in cannabis plants. So what this did was immediately and very, very, very quickly, the plant immediately burst into bud. It didn't take, it hardly took hours. The next day I saw immediate reaction on the plant. Began to see pre-flowering petals, and the plant didn't move. It got greener, it got wider, it got thicker in the middle, but it did not gain height. By the time the plants had been finished under 10 hours of light, instead of 30% gain in height, they'd only experienced a 10% gain in height overall. So this indicated to me that, in fact, with using the 12-1 technique, that you could actually grow your plants up to 10%, within 10% of your previous finished height, finish them off at 10%, and actually end up with a goodly increase in the amount of medicine coming from the inside of the plant. So you're increasing as you increase your height, you're not really, the plant isn't stretching as much as it is filling out. Okay, so that the internode stretch, instead of being maybe 2 inches or 3 inches, would only be an inch, and that inch would be filled with buds instead. Another advantage of this diminished light schedule was that you didn't have to trim as much, because the plant stopped growing leaves and it stopped elongating its stems, and it really concentrates on growing only flowers. Okay, how am I doing?
Awesome.
Everybody following along?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if I don't make sense, please ask me. So yeah, it's really important that we put an end to 12-12 lighting for flowering, because it's really detrimental to the health of the plants, and that means if our plants are running in a stressed out state, that means that whatever medicine they produce was made under duress. Okay, and it can't be as good as medicine made by a plant in full health. It's just not possible. So we really got to put an end to that. Cannabis is a short day plant, and it requires less than 11 hours of time to flower. Okay. You know, you write notes, but you rarely ever use them. Okay, so well, how am I doing for time, Ted?
Half an hour.
Still got half an hour, so you
Got lots of time.
talk for about 20 minutes.
20 minutes. Can I talk for 20 minutes?
Sure.
Okay, I'll try. Let's see. So, what else have I got to say? I don't know. Maybe I could. Maybe you guys might have any questions. No questions? Sure.
You've indicated at 10-hour maximum ideal time.
Mm-hmm.
Did you go over what it's like at 9 hours?
Yeah. Yes. Actually, at 9 hours, it's even better.
So how far? What is the shortest time?
The shortest time you can go down to is 9 hours, and that's pretty sweet. I actually do use 9 hours, 9:15 for the final week. If I'm growing, the reason why I settled on the 10:14 was because I was rotating clones through my flowering room, and so I wanted to keep it constant in both rooms. I'd have in one room I'd have 12-1. In the other room I'd only have 10-14, just to avoid the complications. But if I was doing a single one-shot grow, I would drop it down to 9-15 in the final week, just to finish it off.
Would that be because in natural conditions it would still have that?
Yeah. In natural
you're trying to simulate natural
conditions, it would finish off at about 9, even 8 hours. You could even go down to 8 hours.
In the winter it would be a little different.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
in the greenhouse you want to try to.
Well, in the greenhouse you're simulating your entire environment.
Right.
So you're totally in control of your environment. You have to be pretty much totally in control of your environment.
But it's ideal to have it at natural.
Yeah. The best way to grow it would be to diminish the light 15 minutes every week, so that you start at 11 hours just to begin, and decrease the lighting every 15 minutes once a week, until you reach down to about probably get to 8 hours. And that would because the short lighting really finishes off the leaf production.
There's a difference between early stages too. There's a difference between while it's still in its infancy to when it's fully developed. Like when it's first grown, you still have the same amount of light. You don't, while it's a little seedling, you don't have more light.
Well, no, well, seedling plants will use only as much light as they can process. A small plant will, of course, hardly use any light. So, but differences between flowering and vegging. During the flowering period, the energy is being drawn from the leaves to power the flowers. They're basically each leaf is like basically a solar cell, And once the solar cell has had its lifetime expended, it just naturally drops off. So finishing off that flowering, that helps complete the leafing process and send that energy into the buds where it can be used. Did that help? Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Ted?
There's all sorts of different kinds of light that can be used. There's now LED lights as well. So you've just talked about light as if all light bulbs are created equal. Could you maybe explain what your thoughts are on the different kinds of light?
Of course, all light bulbs are not created equal. Of course, vegetating lighting should be done under a metal halide light or an equivalent. Maybe some of the plasma lights are pretty good. I haven't tried LEDs, but I've had great success using fluorescence and compact fluorescence. You can get them in a pretty high wattage right now, so they're pretty good. Flowering should be done be done under high pressure sodium because of the flavor of the light. It has a lot more reds in it, of course, which stimulates and enhances and allows the PFR phytochromes to enhance themselves. They eat up that red light and use it. Yeah. Behind Ted.
Okay. I have a question. Like I'm sort of like new to the whole growing thing. But I want to give it a try. What would be like a good number of plants to start with? Is like, what's your opinion on like auto-flowering plants and all that kind of thing?
Okay. Often a grower will often start in a closet space. Maybe you might have a 400 watt light. That's about all you need for that. What was part of the question again? Could you say it again?
The second part?
Yeah.
The auto-flowering plants that I've...
Autoflowering is a funny result of someone who wanted to capture the characteristics of the automatic flowering ruderalis plant, which grows in Siberia now. Have you ever heard of the land of the midnight sun? No. Norway, Sweden, like that. Up around the Arctic Circle, there's a region where in the summertime the sun is up 24 hours a day, Now this is a region where the Cannabis ruderalis plant grows, and it grows there under extremely harsh conditions, and so it's developed this trait because of its short season. As soon as it reaches any height, any state of maturity, it begins to flower immediately, no matter what. It's undifferentiated light, basically. So this is the incredible power of the cannabis plant, that it can develop in a foreign environment this ability to flower in spite of all the harshest conditions that you can imagine. So basically now ruderalis is crap. It's very, very low potency, but it has this trait. So the trait was valuable to some breeders because they felt that they could cross it with some higher potency indicas and get a result that would be potent and be easy to grow, flower automatically, and would be very simple. Plant a seed, get a plant, get some smoke. It's lazy gardening as far as I'm concerned, and I don't feel that the ruderalis gene has done much more than degrade the potency of what otherwise would be good strains of weed. So I'm not in favor of autoflowering. I'm not in favor of feminized seeds. They've warped the genes in one way or another, or they've found this trait, which basically cuts the potency of anything it crosses with in half. So that's the ruderalis. I mean, it's really the lowest potency, least useful member of the cannabis family as far as I'm concerned. Get a little scratchy here. Did that help?
Do you have any idea what the startup cost would be to get yourself outfitted and that sort of thing?
Less than $100. Yeah. The seeds are very reasonably priced now, and you can get them in 5-packs, 1-packs, 10-packs, of course. The lights are dropping. There's grow shops everywhere. You can start off with growing seedlings in a very small space using CFLs just to get started, and that's $30, right? A little bit of innovation, a little bit of cleverness, and keep an eye on the conditions. Make it bright, keep it tight, and keep a fan going in there. And it's pretty simple. Pennies, really. Yeah. Are you again?
No, that kind of answers my question.
Oh, okay, cool.
Maybe you want to get into the fertilizers now then.
Fertilizers, sure. Okay. Now, geez, I don't want to be too hard on the fertilizer guys, but I'm afraid that they've been pulling the wool over our eyes a little bit. The charging is way too much. Now, what I like to use for my garden is simply tomato food. You can get it at the nursery. It's organic. It has molasses in it, which is one of the prime ingredients for. Oh, thank you. Which is one of the prime ingredients for bud boosting compounds that you see. I started looking around for things in my house that I could use. I knew about teas and guano teas, and I realized that even my cup of tea had a bunch of nutrients in it, because that's what it is. A tea in China, tea is medicine. They put certain ingredients. Check your health and put certain ingredients in the tea depending on what you need, what it is about your body that is diagnosed to say you need such and such an ingredient combined with this, that, and the other thing. Here's your tea. Drink this tea and you'll feel better, and it works. Same thing with fertilizers. They've all got natural ingredients in them. They're all really cheap ingredients, and you don't have to spend a lot of money on fertilizer. I spend, I think I get a liter of this stuff for $7. And that lasts me for my plants for the season. For bloom, I use a bedding plant blooming fertilizer, which is organic again, using guano and other naturally sourced kelp and things like that. 6-20-10 makes nice big flowers, and I don't have any trouble at all. I don't have to use bud boosters. I don't have to use anything special. Those guys at the grow shop hate me because I don't buy anything. So organic is always the way to go. If you can find it around your house, you've got organic. You've got molasses. You can get a 500 milliliter thing of that for about $2. Mix a tablespoon of that in a gallon of water, and you've got a magnesium flush. Cannabis loves magnesium. Cannabis loves a lot of the things that tomatoes love, and if you can grow tomatoes, then you can have a lot of good success growing cannabis as well. It's really very easy. I'm here to tell you that cannabis growing is not hard. It's really, really easy. The name cannabis sativa means a cane which is easily grown. It's been grown worldwide. My friend Ted can tell you all about the history of everything the wonderful cannabis plant has done for us. I really think it's time we started treating our cannabis better.
Here.
Yes. So, what about flushing at the end in order to help it burn? When do you stop adding fertilizers to the soil?
That's an interesting question, because using these two schedules and allowing for more rest at night allows you to use less fertilizers. So that means that a lot less crap has to be flushed out of the pot at the end of it. And if you're using a nice heavy watering technique, watering through so that it flushes through every once in a while, the problem goes away. It's the technique, the lighting technique, and just the watering technique. It makes it so easy on fertilizer. You don't have to use as much. What you don't have to use, you don't have to flush out of the pot, right?
So,
yes.
Well, if I can, before you get to the next one, then. Okay. So, how late do you keep adding these relatively small amounts of fertilizer into the last week, even? Or?
No, into the middle of the flowering season, about 4 weeks, up till about 4 weeks, and then it's only water after that.
So about 2 weeks of water then?
4 weeks of water.
4 weeks of water?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay, my question was, so like, I know, like I've seen this all the time on like TV and all that stuff, where it's like they track like grow ops because of their power usage or something like
right.
that. Like
right.
for like a really, really like small kind of thing, like you said, like a closet space one.
Right.
Would it be like power usage would be noticeable at all, or?
If you're using the 12-in-1 technique, it is less recognizable by the authorities and the hydro guys. If you're using smaller lights like CFLs, that definitely helps as well. LEDs are great because they only use 5 or 10% of the normal energy. So any way that you can cut your energy and actually burning a light will help. But the schedule definitely helps keep you under the radar as far as tracking your. I don't believe they've recognized it yet. It's fairly new.
And fluorescence lights won't really show up at all, right?
No, that's right. There's no heat signature from fluorescent lights either.
And the electrical use is so minor, it's not negligible.
Yeah, absolutely. You can grow a really good crop just using CFLs, and really avoid that whole power cost thing. I've flowered and finished my plants under CFLs, and they were good. They weren't big, but they were okay. Small lights, small plants. Big lights, big plants. And big plants, more medicine. The bigger your plant can get before you start flowering, the more medicine you get out of it.
How long is your complete growing cycle then?
The same as normal, even a little shorter sometimes.
Oh.
Yeah. We can add a little time to the vegetation schedule to get it 20% bigger, because we know it's finishing 10% smaller. and the 10-14 schedule often finishes a week early because of the extreme buildup of PFR phytochromes. When those hormones build up really to that level, the plant can't do anything but flower. It's just incredible, and there's hardly anything to trim. So it's also a safe labor at the end, which is good because everyone pays for labor, right?
So that would explain. I hear the odd story of someone who would shut the lights off for 3 days or more, right at the very end of the harvest.
Right.
So that would partly be why, although it's a little
that's
extreme.
Right.
But
that's right. Shutting off the lights for 3 days before the end of harvest will help build the phytochromes up to the top level. But you got to be careful doing that. Make sure that the pots are dry because you'll get mold. You want the pots to be dry so that they can dry out on the vine, kind of. Right. All right. How are we doing here? Anyone else?
Yeah, if we're done this topic, I got another topic to bring up.
Okay, sure.
Okay. Last night on the ferry, we had an interesting discussion about powdery mildew, which is a very common problem here on the coast. If you could maybe, describe your methods of dealing with powdery mildew and other forms of mold.
Okay, sure. Powdery mildew is it's a mildew, but it's very susceptible to changes in pH. Now, I don't know. You might have heard recommended to use milk to treat PM. What you do is I think it's a 50-50 mix. I haven't used it myself, but 50-50 mix of milk and water sprayed on the plants. And what that does is it changes the surface pH of the plant so that the powder mildew can no longer survive. Now this has to be done in a one-time application and then rinsed off afterwards because the milk can also clog the stomata of the leaf and make it stop being able to breathe properly.
So you pour like a mix of milk and water into the plant and then you rinse it after?
No, you'd put it in a spray bottle and spray on the leaves, and leave it on for 24 hours, and then spray it off with fresh water once again, and to remove the residue. And that should change the pH of the plant leaf, the surface of the plant's leaf, for long enough to allow the powder mildew to kick off. That's about it, I think.
And you do that in the vegetative state, correct?
Yes, you
don't
do that in the
flowering?
vegetative state. Yeah, you want to do that in the vegetative state. I was thinking cinnamon is also an antibacterial. So if you puff cinnamon around your plants on the soil, that helps a little bit to help keep it down. So any of these spices could be used. I use lots of different stuff. Cinnamon is a very good antibacterial. Okay.
I got some more.
All right, lay it on me, Ted.
Bugs, mites are a common problem here,
Yeah.
and elsewhere. I shouldn't say here in the industry. What methods of dealing with mites, both on a small scale and a larger scale, would you recommend?
On a small scale, I've taken plants and hung them upside down and sprayed them off with a hose, using a vine spray to, I'd put two boards. I'd put two boards over two chairs parallel, and I'd put the plant like this, so it's upside down, and hung between the boards, and I'd spray the leaves off. And the weight of the droplets of water is enough to carry most of the bugs off, except for the eggs that are attached to the plant. So that has to be done a couple of times in a row so that you can get the successive generations. That's a fairly clean method which works. But again, that's small scale. On a large scale, you might have to go to Azomax. You might have to use neem oil. But some people say that neem oil puts a flavor in the medicine that they don't like, even if it's used in veg. Some people have quite a sensitive taste and they don't like it, so you can avoid that if that's the case. But neem oil is fairly safe as well, and it's a plant tonic. When used in veg, it actually helps brighten up the leaves, and it's pretty good for it.
That other product you mentioned?
Azamax is a little bit stronger. I'm not sure if it's on the market, but I've heard it kills them dead. It's not exactly organic, but it's an emergency. It's an emergency measure because they can get really bad here. I know. I don't even worry about them anymore. I consider them an indigenous species, a fact of life. We live in Vancouver. We've got spider mites. That's all there is to it. They're everywhere. A cat can come in. They can come in on some bedding plants that you brought. Poinsettias, for example, good one. They always come in on poinsettias because nobody has to smoke those buds. So cleanliness, keeping an eye on your pets, keeping your room clean. Those are all the best preventative measures. You can't beat having a clean room, keeping a clean operation. It's just preventative is the best measure, I think. Anyone else? Anything else, Ted?
Yeah. I got another topic.
Okay.
There's no more. Oh, there.
That's about
Oh, sure.
temperature.
Temperature?
Because that makes the difference from cold if it's a warmer plot from if it's a colder room.
Right.
What type of
A good one. Temperature. Cannabis likes 75 degrees. They're pretty happy as far up as 85 degrees. They don't mind. And in flower, they don't mind getting a little bit hotter because it helps them produce resins. It helps the plant processes go a little faster. In smaller plants, they want it to be a little bit cooler. Differences in temperature can also be used to finish off your plants. If you want to get some color in your leaves, you got the granddaddy purple. You want to turn purple. You can drop the temp. If you can manage to drop the temperature in your room, you can get some nice colors when you're finishing. That's one of the ways that. But generally 75 to 80, and they're happy as clams. They don't like to be much colder than 65 degrees. Hello.
For that purple effect, can you also lower the nitrogen, and that'll do that?
Yeah, when you drop the nitrogen, it does assist that because it allows the colors actually come from the phosphorus and potassium, because that's what's being used most in the plant, and that's what causes the colors to come out. That drop in temperature, that's the trigger that helps them finish as well. It helps produce certain terpenes, which Ted can probably tell you about. So I'm still studying because there's a lot to study about it. There's a lot of information about cannabis that we're all a collective, and we're all trying to find all this information. Right. Go for it, Ted.
What's your recommended method of curing cannabis?
Slower is better. I like to hang it up the whole plant, or branch by branch. Let it go for a day or so, and start to take the trim off. Get it into jars at about 30% humidity. What I'll do is I'll take the buds and I'll weigh one. I'll weigh one branch, and and I'll put it back. I'll mark it and I'll put it back up to dry, and I'll wait until that branch has reached 30% of its wet weight, and then I'll take everything and start to putting into jars and sealing it up and curing, because from 30% down you're starting to deal with get the terpenes and some of the chemicals are bonding together and curing properly. So that's about the right spot.
And that's after a couple of days you put it
That's
in the
about
jar?
after a couple of days, depending on the room, how warm it is.
At that much moisture, wouldn't it be volatile for mold though?
Well, once you're getting it into your first jars, you're beginning to you're using the burping technique, where you'll allow it to. So the moisture content varies from the inside of the bud to the outside. So once the outside of the bud begins to dry out, and you close it up, all the moisture that's on the very inside of the bud moves to the outside of the bud again and softens it again. That's part of your curing process, which allows those all the moisture to come out of the buds more evenly. So at that point, it's opening and closing jars for a few days until you get down to 10 or 15% or so.
So you open the jar every day then, and
yes.
let it air off?
Yes.
Or like half an hour, an hour?
Yeah, half an hour, an hour. Yeah, that's usually enough. Enough until it starts to stiffen up a little bit, because the buds they'll go soft and spongy, and then they'll stiffen, and then they'll soften, and then they'll stiffen, and then once you stop being able to give it a squeeze, once it stops giving, once it stops being spongy, I should say, then that's when you can get it into jars and for long-term storage.
There's only a couple minutes left. Maybe you can tell us about your book and how where people can buy it.
All right. Well, my book is called Medical Growing: A Garden of Peace, and it talks about all the things that I've spoken about today, about the 12-1 technique. Now, I sincerely believe that the 12-1 technique is the coming revolution for growing cannabis, and I feel that if anybody who isn't practicing the technique in the very near future, with the coming of legal marijuana, they're going to be left behind, because they'll be paying too much for growing their marijuana. With using the 12-in-1, you can grow your marijuana for less than $1 a gram, and that is significant. That's going to be very significant and very important to everyone who grows their own medicine, and well, everyone who grows medicine. Let's face it. Okay, I have some here for anybody who would like to pick up a copy. I'd like to thank you all very much for inviting me out here to talk to you, and it's been a really great time, and golly, I've been nervous, but I really had a good time anyways.
No, it's been wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you so very much for coming and speaking with us, Dan. It's an honor for this to be your first experience in public, and we're going to be happy to share this video with a lot of people online, and if you want to watch it again, that's where it will be. So thank you so very much for coming.
So you're going to post it?
Oh yeah, we're going to post the video. Way more people watch these. Like, this is almost more like we're doing a video and you guys are watching us.
I understand that.
There's hundreds watched it later on YouTube.
So in front of a live audience.
Yeah, it's nice having a few people. Pardon?
With that, what YouTube channel?
Hempology 101.
Yeah,
we got our YouTube channel there with lots of stuff on it, and we'll add this to the show. So next week, I guess I'm doing a talk on the health benefits of cannabis, or medical impacts of cannabis, which might not be as interesting as the one in 2 weeks. We're going to bring Brandy down here from the Buyers Club to do a talk about vaporizing, and go through all these different vaporizers that we have and are selling now, and talk about different aspects of consideration when using these machines, and the different kinds that are out there and stuff. So that'll be an interesting talk in a couple of weeks, and hopefully I'll be lining up some more guest speakers as the semester goes on. And otherwise, I'd like to thank everybody for coming out. Hope you all have a great day, and smoke them if you got it.